Now here's the thing. You've got these 5 factors that contribute to behavior. The first one being that cognition communication. The cognition communication, these are those, these are the academic stuff. These are your memory. These are your long-term, short-term memory, your background academic stuff, transitions, organization, all of those, attention. Okay, these are all cognitive skills. Cognitive skills. Organization and attention is a cognitive skill. It's not, you can't be disorganized. It's not a bad behavior. It's a cognitive skill. And we have to teach that, but we also have to find out how the brain works for that child so they can figure out how to get organized. So when you see behaviors that happen around cognitive communication, when I have a child who's nonverbal, I have a child who has a difficult time, with physical factors, which is another causal factor. I know that when they're presented with something in that domain, in that area that's a challenge, I'm going to see a response that's going to react to what is challenging to them. And unless they have other responses that we have purposefully taught them to deal with that feeling, they will respond the same way every time. Let me give you a simple example. Some of us love math. Some of us struggle with math. So I've heard many people say, I don't do math, man. That's a behavior, right? That's a refusal. Nobody ever says, I don't do reading. So we will respond to something that's difficult for us, but I wouldn't say, oh my goodness, that math is difficult for me. Could you sit down and explain it to me a little bit more and help me with my, help me with my self-management skills around the reaction to that curriculum that's hard for me so that I can sustain a longer attention and we can learn this together. Kids never say that, all right? They just say, I'm not doing this. I don't like it. Physical factors, sight, hearing, physical movement, diagnoses, all of those play into those behaviors. Self-help, being able to feed yourself, being able to enter the room, being able to know how to navigate the cafeteria. Believe it or not, kids don't have cafeterias in their homes, and we tend to expect them to be able to do it on their own. Then we get into the social skills, the emotional skills. So when you look at this, when you picture this in your head and you see the behaviors coming at you and you're thinking about your class and your school through the last years or whatever it is that you've been thinking about, and you ask yourself, is it a cognitive communication skill that creates that issue? Is it a physical? Is it a self-help? Is it a social? Or is it an emotional? What lack of skill do they have that's creating that action? Sometimes it's a combination of the two. And one of the things that we often do in school is that when it's, let's say, cognitive communication, attention, or reading, or writing, or whatever it might be, we really go after that. But if it's a combination of a cognitive communication skill and also a social emotional, we really have to start thinking about where do we want to put our energies. And we should be thinking about putting our energies into that social emotional domain, and then we will open up more avenues in the cognitive communication. So that's always the trick for us, is where do we go first? And here's where I find we need to focus with a very large percentage of our kids. When I work with children on the spectrum, the same thing. I'm always like, let me get the social emotional pieces intact before I start really hitting that cognitive place so that they're more available to learn some new skills. And that's one of our biggest issues. Oftentimes is our kids just aren't available. And that's where that social emotional piece is really important.